So, hello and welcome to all of you in this weekly webinar series Connect, Share, and Learn with Global Teachers. So, this is a weekly seminar where we invite top 50 finalists for the Global Teacher 2020. So, we have invited till now the five participants, five guest speakers Carolina from Argentina, Jeff from USA, Gustavo from Mexico, Leo Juki from USA, and Scott today from Canada. So today we have very special guest, Scott Hebert, who is a teacher in St. John Paul Catholic School in Canada. So agenda, I'll just introduction, then followed by his presentation for 15 minutes. Then you can ask your questions, and then followed by conclusion. So we have some of the very prestigious guests in the audience as well. Mr. Sanjay Kumar Rathore, the education officer here in Maharashtra in Solapur district. With me, my co-host Manju Chilla, she is from Sun City School, Gurgaon, Delhi. And the guest speaker today is Mr. Scott. So Scott, he is very passionate and dedicated teacher who has taught K to 12 physical education as well as grade 7 and 8 science teacher. So he is deeply passionate about engagement, students' connections, and relationship in the classrooms, and believes that when connected together properly, you can pick interest in all the students. And Scott has actually written two books, Press Start to Begin and Insert Coin to Continue. He was the recipient of the 2030 Alberta Excellence in Teaching Award and 2015 Gamification of Education Project of the Year. He has also been fortunate enough to share his ideas with two different TEDx groups. That's great. Most recently with the University of Alberta, and he was the alumni of the year in 2017 for Human Kinetics Laureation University. So it's a great privilege for us to have you today, and he will be talking about the gamification, what exactly gamification is all about, how he has changed his classrooms. So Scott, floor is yours now. Please take this forward and tell us what exactly the gamification is all about. Please go ahead.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for having me, everybody. It's very nice to meet everybody here. I'm just going to get my presentation shared here. Okie dokie. So when it comes to this presentation, it's very difficult for me to summarize everything I do in 15 minutes. I have a completely different view of education and its pedagogy, meaning how I believe education and its system should be taught. So I'm going to focus on one particular element today, but at the end, I'll show you some, I'll give you some links for information where you can get all of my resources for free, because one of the things that I'm passionate about as a teacher is believing that money shouldn't be an issue for educators who want to improve their practice or their classroom. So all of my resources are free, including the two books that were mentioned. So I'm going to get going. The big push and belief that I have is that education is a system in an engagement crisis. And when I say this because a lot of the time the issues that occur in education is we are constantly blaming the kids for their lack of participation or drive or enthusiasm in classrooms. It's very prevalent here in North America. So one of the things that I realized pretty early on as a teacher, and as well as my own personal experience as a student early on, is that when kids are bored and not feeling connected to the curriculum or the content or a unit or a lesson, whatever it may be, I find that a big issue then becomes, misbehaving and not doing proper work or rushing. And you really actually realize that this is an engagement crisis, and that when you're not connected, you're not putting forth the effort, and then it has the domino effect of continuing to lead down a road of places you don't want your kids to go. So after interviewing kids and talking to them and connecting with them, I'm a huge proponent of connection and student-teacher relationship in a classroom. I came to this conclusion of something called gamification. And I started this practice about 7 years ago. And I've been using it for about 5 years.
Laptop or video call?
I'm just not sure if you can, because I keep hearing background. Okay, there we go. Sorry. Gamification is predominantly used in business and marketing as a way to hook and capture a user or a client or someone in your business that you want to, maybe have spend money or stay connected to your organization. And it didn't exist a lot in education. So what it means is, it means the idea of using game design elements in a non-traditional game setting, which essentially means all of the things that keep a user hooked and interested in a game or a non-essential thing, and applying those in particular to a classroom or an environment that's not a game, such as a business or marketing, medical, all of those different kinds of things. So I put the spin on education. So a lot of people look at it and they say, oh, so you're talking about like when you have points or sticker charts in classrooms and leaderboards and all those different kinds of things. And the idea here is that that's not exactly at all what I'm saying. What's going on when we see this is these things will die out because they don't have enough depth or substance to students. They become a novelty. So what I'm going to be showing you guys is a bit of a deeper understanding towards what gamification really is and looks like. So why do I do this? Well, if you were to actually be able to speak to a school, a lot of the school viewpoints of kids is that kids could be not resilient, lazy, uninterested, not dedicated to tasks, and they'll be work avoidance. And if you actually think about it, school is a system designed for a focus on loss. Because if you ask any student that's in your class on day one, their mark is actually 100%. And every time they don't achieve 100% on an assignment, their grade begins to drop, not progress and grow. And for a lot of kids, that emphasis on failure that school brings about in kids creates a lot of tension and worry in them. And then in turn, you get subpar work, or you get a lot of mental health, and you get a lot of panic and worry about different types of assignments. However, if you were to be able to talk to a game, whether you're talking to a sport or a video game or a computer game or something, a board game, you would find out that the users of that are extremely resilient, dedicated, with high levels of effort and interest. And if you look at games actually focus completely on growth. They focus on having you start at, level 0 or at the beginning of something, and then they constantly recognize your growth and your progression, which is exactly what school is supposed to do. So here would be a little task to show you the power of simplicity and gamification in a classroom. And then you can essentially extrapolate this and continue to grow it as you add more and more elements into your classroom. As I said, there's so many different things that I do. To summarize in 15 minutes isn't possible, but I can leave you with this one activity. So if we look at this, when it comes to gamification, the thing is size matters. Okay. The first thing is that there's three ways to gamify. You can gamify a lesson, you can gamify a particular unit or topic, or you can gamify the entire school year, which is what I did. But my focus for you guys today is going to be to gamify a particular lesson, and I'll explain. When you gamify a lesson, the emphasis is on fun, games, a small prize that they're working towards, and an emphasis on teamwork. One of the things that school, at least in my experience, has really taken a step back is the ability to work in groups and with people. So we always have this emphasis on individuality, when in reality, work is a collective everywhere you go. You're always working with people. So your ability to function as a group is vital. If you were to go at a unit, then you would start adding additional elements, meaning you're going to start bringing in a little bit of game language and a little bit of a target. And then if you go to a year-long experience, then what's going to happen is you're actually going to be essentially creating a movie or a book that the kids are going to be a part of. They might be heroes trying to save something, save somebody, stop an evil villain, rescue somebody, whatever the case may be. And you get the kids absorbed. It's the same thing if you've ever watched a TV show or a movie or read a book or watched a play and you've been captivated by it to where the point where you feel sad for characters and happy and joy for them, and you can't get yourself out of this world that you've immersed yourself in. And that's what gamification looks like. So let's talk right now about how you do a lesson. So when it comes to it, the first thing you have to understand when you're doing a lesson is the difference between story and narrative. So the difference between story and narrative is story is your entire concept of your classroom. So that is a bad guy takes over the city, you have to eliminate him. Someone needs you to bring an antidote to someone who is sick, and you have to get through a bunch of challenges along the way. You're a spy trying to save the world, etc. So it's the big overarching concept. When you go to narrative, these are the individual people that you meet along the way. So this is where you can wrap your curriculum and your content into the story. So you might meet somebody who has a task for you to complete. A question we get a lot, and I think pretty much everywhere in the world, is why do we have to learn this? And the easiest way to teach kids that is to incorporate a narrative into your program. So when you incorporate the narrative, you might meet somebody who takes a concept and makes it real. So you might have to use a concept that you've learned in class in a real world setting. So they need you to figure out a way to complete this task in this real world scenario. What would you do? And one of the advantages to gamification is that traditional work in school is here's what you do, here's how I want you to do it, here's what it should look like at the end. As to where my view of education is, here's what you need to do. I don't care at all how you figure it out, but you have to get to this point. So I will show them the starting line and the finishing line, but I will not show them anything that's in between. So I will let them pave their own road to the finish, which often produces a lot of really cool creative elements. And then the second thing you want to do is you want to focus on mood. You want to make it come to life. If you say you're in a jungle, bring some elements into your classroom that make it feel like a jungle. Put background music on in your classroom. Use different language in your classroom. Think of it as if you had to sell something to someone to save your life. You have to sell and make your kids believe about this concept. So here's what I would encourage you to do. This is a game called Jenga, which is nothing more. If you've not seen it before, it's just 3 wooden bricks and 3 wooden bricks, and they just go up and down like this. And you have to take 1 brick off at a time. And as you take 1 brick off, you have to put it on the top. And the goal is to stack the tower as high as you can without knocking it over. So here's what I did. I encouraged the teacher who wanted to go into gamification but was nervous about the concept. And I said, so on Monday, I want you to walk into your classroom and I want you to draw a big number 4 on your board in the front of the room, and then leave, and then let your students come into the classroom before you, and then act surprised that there's a big number 4 on the board. So in doing that, what you're doing is you're setting your mood and you're setting your story. The teacher starts to go, who wrote this on the board? Why is this written on the board? What's going on? And then they erase it and we don't think about it. Well, then the next day you write a number 3, and all of a sudden you come back into the classroom and you say, well, who wrote this? Guys, stop writing on my board here. What's going on? And you begin to create this story that there's somebody who's leaving a message on the board. Well, on Wednesday, when you write it too, the kids are going to start to realize that this is a countdown to something. So now the narrative starts. Who wrote it? Why did they write it? What's going to happen on Friday when it gets to 0, et cetera, et cetera. And you start to build this creativity where kids are creating scenarios in their head that captivate them and keep them excited about a particular topic. And then this would be an example of a one-time gamification lesson. What you would do is you would continue that countdown, acting totally shocked. And then on Friday, you put an activity that you like to do. Now, my example was Jenga, but you can use any type of activity you like. and you turn it into a game. So what you do is you provide a simple prize, a really, really good prize for kids, the one that they just cannot believe is a prize, is the simple act of saying the team that wins this activity, I will answer 1 point on your quiz. Meaning if you have a 30, 40 question quiz, 1 point to you is absolutely nothing as a teacher, but to a kid, it is incredible for them to be able to put their hand up and be like, I don't know number 5. Can you help me with number 5? And that one single mark means nothing because the amount of work that they had to do to earn that one single mark totally nullifies the fact that you're helping them in that regard. So you do some trivia questions, and then as they do trivia questions and get them correct, they have to pull a brick to earn their points. And they continue back and forth until they knock the tower over. And what I want you to watch in this little video clip, it's only a few seconds, watch the total engagement of the kids as they're terrified that the tower is going to get knocked over. So as you look at that whole thing, what you're seeing is kids who are 100% engaged in a task. To be able to do what they did, they had to demonstrate curricular knowledge and answer trivia questions in the form of a review activity in order to get to complete this task. So through the academics, the kids are rewarded with play. And if there's one thing you take away from anything that I've said today, is that play is not the opposite of learning. There's a big fear in education that you can take play, and if you add it into school, then kids are not learning. You're taking away from core academic. Play is the most fundamental way that everyone and everything learns. It allows for trial and error and experiential learning, discovery-based learning, collaborative approaches, and the list goes on. So don't be afraid to add play into your classroom. Then again, I have teams, I have game cards, I have jobs, I have boss battles, I have experience points, I have a magic system, I have a custom board game, the list goes on. The more you pull out particular ideas that are successful in your classroom, you can continue to add till you get to your progression of going from a unit to a year-long thing. So the best way to probably learn about this is one of two things. So I have a YouTube channel, which I realize I forgot to put here. So if you were to go to this YouTube channel right there, what you would find is all of the videos. So I've made about 50 videos up to date that show different activities, ideas, and concepts of gamification, which of course are totally free. And then my 2 books and everything that I've ever created in gamification, which represents over 1,000 hours of work and over $3,000 to $4,000 of my own money, is now all 100% free for teachers to access and use through these links. So I know that was a bit of a crash course and lots of different ideas in a short presentation, but that is the nature of gamification. It is something that can be a small scale experience to one incredible overarching experience in your classroom. So that is my little presentation for now, and I will happily answer any questions you may have.